What is up, everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of Set Point. And as always, give ourselves a jam-packed show as we have quite a bit of volleyball to discuss, such as Costa, the king of SoCal boys volleyball, taking down Loyola again. They are one win away from being CIF state champion and pretty much being national champion. But it wasn't easy taking down the likes of Loyola a third time and the second in 8 days. Also, the U.S. women's national team showed up and showed out when it came to Costa High last Wednesday, as there were some players that stood out and there were some players that got to shine. Who were those players that stood out and shined? Also, the ADP League kicks off in week 1 as the ADP League will be heading to Newark, New Jersey. Who will be able to stand out in terms of the ADP League? Also, we have quite a bit of volleyball to discuss in terms of the PNL as, not too far away. So get your stuff ready and get ready for that as well. And the volleyball. So that's enough. John Bob Smith from Volleyball Action here on Set Point. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of Set Point here on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome one, welcome all to another edition of Set Point. Thank you all for joining me on this beautiful Monday afternoon, Monday evening, Monday, wherever you are listening from. Either way, you've made a way in episode 352 of Set Point. Without any further delay, let's begin. But first and foremost, Set Point would not be where it's at without iSports Radio providing the platform to go live on YouTube and on X. Please do subscribe to iSports Radio on YouTube. We're trying to get to 500 subscribers, and we're definitely on our way up there. We definitely are gaining more subscribers than we had in previous weeks. And with your help, we can definitely reach 500. So spread the word. If you haven't subscribed to iSports Radio, do so. We would greatly appreciate it. Also, make sure to follow iSports Radio on X at iSports Radio. Also, check out the website, iSportsRadio.com, for all of your latest sports news. Our soon-to-be brought-back blog. Our page is dedicated to each show, such as Set Point, and so much more. For the last 12 years, yes, 12 years, iSports Radio is bringing you amazing content, ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports around the country. Thank you to everyone for all of your support and for making iSports Radio your direct feed for all that sports. A huge shout out to our sponsor, Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. So without any further delay, let's get on into what our sponsor is all about. I'll see you all in a little bit.
Hi, eSports Radio fans. This show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, Single A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
That's right, everybody. Definitely check out our sponsor, Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Here's all the info down below beneath the ticker. We greatly appreciate them for being the official sponsors of iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. And we would not be here without you all helping us pay the bills. It really means a lot to us. So before we head on into the volleyball action, make sure you give Setpoint a follow on social media on X and on TikTok at set_point.ie. You can also follow me personally as well at Teran Rodriguez 1. That's where you can mainly find me. And you can also follow Setpoint on Instagram at set_point_IESR. You can also follow Setpoint on Facebook as well, which all you just got to do is type in the word set and then point. And then if you see the beach volleyball icon that I had a little while ago before I had my avatar changed, which is basically the same as my Instagram avatar, that will be me. So all my posts that are going to be on, that'll be on Instagram will also migrate over to Facebook as well. So I think it's going to help me out in terms of like monetization, and also help out Setpoint in terms of like growing and so on and so forth. I think it's actually a pretty useful tool. So I really got to thank Instagram for helping me, piece things up in terms of my Instagram and Facebook as well. So with all that being said, let's get on into the volleyball action. So it's kind of, we're kind of in that quiet week in the dog days of summer. So we don't have too much to talk about in terms of like volleyball. So there was a little bit of volleyball news in terms of NCAA men's volleyball. So let us get that patched up right here and now. Boomski. So in terms of NCAA men's volleyball, there wasn't too much big time news. Bryce Robbins did transfer from Loyola to McKendree. And then also in the MIVA, we had Nate Flater, one of the top setters in NCAA men's volleyball, transferring from McKendree, and he'll be playing his final year at the Ohio State. So I think it's pretty cool that Ohio State now has Nate Flater. He was actually a very good setter for McKendree. So it'll be his last year in terms of eligibility, but I think Nate Flater is going to make the most of it in terms of playing in his last year with the Buckeyes. So that's pretty cool right there. And then I guess some NCAA women's volleyball news. This was actually made official from Long Beach State. They actually signed Kendall Murphy. So that was big right there, considering they just lost Logan King to Florida. I couldn't believe it and you all probably remember the news that I broke to you all last Tuesday. So last Tuesday is when I went live. And right before I went live, I got the notification that Logan King was transferring from Long Beach State to Florida, which is a big loss for Long Beach, but Florida just got a good one. But getting Kendall Murphy also is big, just because Murphy, she had herself quite the sophomore year at Baylor. So she transfers from Baylor, and in addition, she'll also be playing beach volleyball with Long Beach State. And Long Beach is kind of building themselves up quite a good roster. I'm going to be covering them in the fall, obviously, along with UCI and USC. But they're kind of building themselves a nice little roster. They got, in terms of like transfers, notable transfers, they obviously have Kendall Murphy. They got Reagan Hope from Arizona State / UCLA. They also got Danny Thomas Nathan from USC. They got Kinga Zalakowska from McNeese. She's a big time setter. They also got Emma Gardner, who graduated early and was training with the beach, as well as Kyler Birkelbach, who as well as Gardner, she graduated early and she wound up signing with Long Beach State. So I think it's pretty big, and Long Beach is kind of starting to build themselves a quiet but good roster. It's certainly going to be a tall roster, but we shall see what happens. Yeah, they obviously also have Maddie Maxwell and Maddie Collins, because they had beach volleyball and so on and so forth. So just that little bit of NCAA men's volleyball, or NCAA men's and women's volleyball news. I know it just says NCAA men's volleyball, but I had to throw in that little bit of volleyball news. I kind of figured it was official once Long Beach kind of announced, when she announced it. It was official this past week, but fully officially was when Murphy announced that she was transferring from Baylor to Long Beach State to play beach and indoor volleyball with the beach. So there you go. All right, but that's that for that little bit of transfer news right there. There hasn't been too much happening in terms of like NCAA men's or women's volleyball. We're kind of in that that little limbo where college volleyball isn't happening for less than 100 months. Not 100 months, less than 100 days. So less than 100 days until the NCAA women's volleyball season starts, and all of us NCAA men's volleyball fans can probably start punching air until the new season begins. So there you go. All right, but let's jump on into some high school boys volleyball. So last time we were here, I talked the CIF SoCal Regional and NorCal Regional Division I playoffs. So we're down to just 2 teams remaining, and I'm just going to just speed through this all. It was all chalk. Every bit of it was all chalk. So to the selection committee that seeded the Northern California region and the Southern California region, give yourself a pat on the back because everything was all chalk. There were no upsets, which I think was pretty cool if you ask me. But yeah, I kind of wish there were some upsets here and there. We'll start with the SoCal region. I mean, the NorCal region, I don't want to say this to be rude, but the NorCal region is pretty much, I don't know if they can hold a candle to any of the better SoCal teams. And that's no disrespect to any of those NorCal teams. Like, not a lot of them are ranked in the Max Preps national rankings, but I digress. Yeah, for the SoCal region, I actually went to one match. It was Newport Harbor at Huntington Beach, where Huntington Beach swept Newport Harbor. They took them down for the 4th time, and this time was the least stressful just because, well, the first 3 times they went through with them in the Best of the West tournament in the quarterfinals, where Newport Harbor almost beat Huntington Beach. Then the second go-around was the first league meeting between the two. Newport Harbor jumped out to a 2-0 lead at Huntington Beach, and then Huntington Beach won the next 3, completing the reverse sweep. And then the third meeting was at Newport Harbor. It was the second league meeting between the Oilers and the Sailors, and Huntington Beach dropped the first set, but they wound up winning the next 3 sets for a gentleman's sweep. But this time, it was just a standard sweep, which I thought was pretty impressive, if you ask me. So, look, Huntington Beach was on a mission, and even though they had less time off than Newport Harbor did, they did not skip a beat by any means. Because they have Logan Hutnick, and Logan, he always seems to have a big-time match against Newport Harbor, no matter what the situation is. So I think that was pretty cool right there. So, yeah, Huntington Beach advanced. Redondo Union got past Corona Del Mar, which I thought was going to be an upset. I thought Corona Del Mar was going to pull the upset. I mean, it's a 4-5 matchup, and it's one of those 50-50 matches. But honestly, the Sea Kings, I thought they would have been a whole lot better than what they showed. They were really impressive to start the season, and then they kind of went down the toilet in terms of the remainder of the season. Like, ever since they lost to Edison, that was kind of the loss that kind of, I wouldn't say spiraled them out of control, because they still got second in their league and they still won a playoff match. But I kind of expected a little bit more of a deeper postseason run with the Sea Kings. But yeah, they lost to Redondo Union on the road. I was a little surprised at that. They lost in 4, so I can't really say too much bad about that. But I'll also just say that if they had forced the 5th set, this year they have been really successful in 5-set matches. So I think if they had forced the 5th set, I think CDM could have probably beaten Redondo. And then the other matches were Loyola taking down the Bishop School of La Jolla in 4. I was a little surprised that match needed 4, but Loyola was kind of coming off of a championship hangover. And championship hangovers can happen in terms of winning a championship or losing a championship in terms of the Southern section. Or for the case of La Jolla's own, the Bishop School, they wound up winning the San Diego section, which I thought was pretty cool if you ask me. Because even though the San Diego teams in Division I kind of got the shaft, they obviously had to put 2 from there. It was either 2 from there or 1 from the LA section and then 1 from the San Diego section, and then so on and so forth. But I think Torrey Pines and the Bishop School deserve to be there just because they were amongst some of the elite and so on and so forth. But I digress. But yeah, the Bishop School pushed Loyola, but Loyola wound up winning in 4, and then Costa swept Torrey Pines, which was no surprise there. And then came the regional semifinals where Loyola swept Redondo Union. I was a little surprised that Miracosta swept Redondo that easily, but I guess the Seahawks, look, sometimes you just have one of those nights, and Redondo hasn't had too many of these clunker matches. But against Miracosta, they didn't have a clunker match. They just kind of ran into a buzzsaw. So, of course, Miracosta was going to give them the work. And then the other surprising result was Loyola sweeping Huntington Beach, which I was a little surprised Huntington Beach got swept just because Huntington Beach is a really good team. But you're about to see that Loyola had a different lineup than they did previously against the Miracosta and Redondo in the Southern Section playoff. So, like I said, everything was all chalk, including on the Northern California side. The NorCal section or the NorCal regionals were a little bit tighter. Some went 5, some went 4. But for the SoCal regional finals, I actually attended this match at Miracosta High. It was Miracosta and Loyola. It was round 3 between the Mustangs and the Cubs. And first set, I'll just say this. Loyola came with a lot of energy. They had 5 service aces, and they won the first set 25-14. And I was honestly thinking, could we be seeing an upset here? Because Loyola, in my opinion, is a good team. It's just that against Miracosta, they haven't really, it doesn't really show it just because Miracosta is just so darn good. And Miracosta can even make the best team look like an average team, but I digress. Second set, Miracosta kind of got it together. They had 3 service aces, and Loyola missed 4 serves, eventually leading to Costa taking the second set 25-20. Third set was all Miracosta. They had little to no problems as they took the third set 25-12. Fourth set, Loyola had 3 aces. Miracosta missed 4 serves, and once Loyola started getting it together past double digits, they just rolled on, and they wound up taking the fourth set 25-19, and they wound up winning that set off of a block at the net. Now, the reason why I mentioned that is because at the end of the set, let's just say this match was a little chirpy and chippy. Yeah? Okay, maybe not chippy, but there was a lot of chirping going on with these two teams just because it's a really good rivalry. Miracosta Loyola in boys volleyball is one of the more better rivalries in high school boys volleyball. Believe me. And there was a lot of trash talking going on and a lot of mouthing off. But there was a lot of, obviously, respect between the two teams. But at the end of the set, Blake Falbish obviously got the solo block. I think he blocked Mateo Furbringer. And let's just say he might have said something that proctored a red card. So at the beginning of set 5, Loyola was issued a red card. And unfortunately, Blake Falbish did get the red card. And Miracosta took that point and ran with it because they eventually wound up scoring the next 2 points, and they never looked back. So how Miracosta won? Miracosta wound up winning because, well, they started passing better. And one person that I thought passed better for them and passed really well was Justin Warner. I thought Justin Warner, he was brought in late in set 1 just because one of the other Miracosta players was struggling in terms of passing. But Justin Warner, here's the story about him. So he kind of lost his starting spot to Dane Del Rigo, who was a call-up from last year, who's worked hard and wound up winning the starting libero position. And then eventually Justin, I think, was going to get the libero position back, but then he got hurt. So the fact that he came in and responded well, he was a true leader. It did not show in his numbers. He probably had double-digit digs, but he was just passing like nails. And in addition, he had a service ace in the early stages of set 5. And that was what really helped stir Miracosta in terms of winning. Eventually, Miracosta wound up winning the whole thing. And yeah, unfortunately, there was no official box score, but I was able to take down numbers. Miracosta had, if we're counting out of rotation violations, they had 9 aces. They missed 12 serves, while Loyola had 7 service aces while missing 11 serves. So overall, it was kind of solid serving and passing. So I think Miracosta just passed better after set number 1. So there you have it right there. In terms of kills, I got them for the most part. I didn't really get a final total, but you're gonna have to bear with me as I pretty much do the math right here. 12 in terms of Mateo Furbringer, because Mateo obviously led Mira Costa in terms of kills. He had 4 kills in set 1, 8 kills in set 2. That's 12. He had 6 kills in set 3, so that's 18. Wait. Yeah. He had 18 going into set 4. He had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 kills in set number 4. So he had 24 kills going into set 5, and then he had 2 kills in set 5 for a grand total of 26 kills. So that's just how good Mateo Furbringer was. And then Wyatt Davis also had 6 kills. He also had 3 blocks overall. They also got a good amount of kills from, it wasn't Enzo Barker had 3 kills, which I thought was pretty cool, and he also had a solo block. But it was Colby Graham who also stepped up. He had, by my count, 5 kills. So he had 5 kills. But yeah, Mateo Furbringer was just that guy. He was just doing everything. But yeah, Mira Costa, let me just tell you about them. They're not the flashiest team. They're not the team with a lot of Division I commits. I mean, there's obviously Wyatt Davis, who's going to UCSB, and Mateo Furbringer and Teddy Mandelbaum both going to UCLA. But Davis is the only senior that I think is committed, unless I'm missing something, but I digress. But yeah, this Mira Costa team, they're one of the more scrappier teams that I've seen. And look, they're obviously going to grind every single day. And the thing about them is they don't have the flashiest names in terms of like seniors, and they're probably going to be starting like underclassmen. But to me, I think this team is a team that grinds a whole lot and a team that works hard in terms of its matches. And they don't make anything easy. I mean, yeah, they've got Mateo Furbringer, who's just putting down kill after kill and making highlight reel after highlight reel. I should also mention that Mateo Furbringer had 5 service aces. So Mateo was putting in that overtime and then some. So there you go. But yeah, for Mateo Furbringer, he's fantastic. But this whole Mira Costa team, it was a team effort in terms of winning this match. If they just had Mateo Furbringer just carrying this team by himself, I don't know. I don't know if Mira Costa can win, but honestly, it was a team effort. Everyone from the defensive specialist to the libero to the setter to the middle to the oppo, they did their job. Now for Loyola, it was unfortunately a tough loss for them. So remember how I mentioned Blake Fallbush? He actually set for Loyola. So Loyola actually ran a 6-2 offense, which thankfully for Mira Costa, they were able to get some game film, or they scouted the Huntington Beach Loyola match, and then they saw Blake Fallbush setting. So I was actually pretty intrigued by Blake Fallbush setting. I thought that was pretty cool right there. But Nate Garrett was the one that actually led the team in terms of kills. He had 22 kills. So he's a senior, but he's not going to be committing to playing college volleyball. Kind of like Enzo Barker and Justin Warner. So unfortunately, those guys aren't going to be playing college volleyball, which is a bummer just because I think those guys could actually play college volleyball. But sometimes you just got to hang up the volleyball shoes when you need to. JP Wardy had 9 kills. Like I said, Nate Garrett had 22 kills. Rafa Milchin, he had to carry the 3. He didn't have his biggest night. He had 7 kills, which was solid, but obviously it wasn't as big of a match than he had in other matches. But he's still a budding star, and I think Rafa Milchin's going to be a star for this Loyola team next year. So overall for Loyola, it was a tough loss for them, but that 5th set, when they gave him that first point, I was thinking to myself, uh-oh, that's bad news. Because when you give Mira Costa a free point, they're going to take that point and run with it. You just cannot give up a free point to Mira Costa no matter what, especially a team, any good team like that. So I think for Mira Costa, they're one of the more better or stronger teams without the senior firepower or senior Division I bound leadership and whatnot. But either way, I think that this Mira Costa team is one of the more sneaky good teams out there. And play them at your own risk, just because early on they struggled, but as the season went by, they started to figure out who was going to be playing where in terms of position-wise. So I thought that was pretty cool. But Loyola, it was a tough end for them, and that is basically their season right there. And then Northgate wound up taking down Jesuit in 5. So it wasn't just the SoCal regional final having a 5-set barn burner. It was the NorCal regional final, which had a 5-set barn burner, which I thought was pretty cool right there. So now for the regional final in Division 1, it's Costa versus Northgate. So Northgate actually only has 1 loss, which I think is pretty cool. Costa has 2 losses. Costa's lost to the likes of Corona Del Mar, which was in a tournament, and then they lost to Redondo Union. And then Northgate, I think they lost to Bellarmine Prep to start the season, but that was like way back in the season. So overall, it's 1 seed versus 1 seed. Then the best team in Northern California versus the best team in Southern California. Honestly, I don't want to say this to be mean to Northgate, but Costa is just basically going to they should run train. I'd be surprised if Northgate wound up if they take a set off. Then that's a win on its own. But honestly, I think this Costa team is on a mission because they want to send their seniors off with a win. And they want to send their players like Jake Newman off with a win. Like I said, Enzo Barker, Wyatt Davis, Justin Warner, the list goes on and on. Like, I think their senior class is pretty light this year. I think they only have like 8 seniors. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not like their senior class last year, believe me. But this Costa team is way too determined and way too focused to not win the state championship this Saturday. That's going to be at Fresno City College. That's going to be a 4 p.m. start time, 4 p.m. Pacific time. So if you're in the area, go check that out. Unfortunately, I will not be able to check that out, but it is what it is. I don't have the money to go down to Fresno City College and Fresno overall. So there you go. But overall, it was a fun match that I attended at Costa High on Saturday. I enjoyed watching some darn good volleyball between 2 longtime rivals. And let me just say, Costa beating Loyola for a 3rd time this year. I don't know if that's happened. It might have happened in the past, but I don't remember the last time Costa took down Loyola 3 times in a season. But overall, that's some impressive stuff right there from Costa. They've now beaten Loyola 4 straight times dating back to last year, so I think that's pretty cool right there. But yeah, this Costa team is on a tear, and even if they lose, I'd be surprised if they weren't crowned national champions because they deserve the right to be national champions. They're going to get the triple crown, and their team's going to be good next year. Believe me, as long as they return Mateo Furbringer, they're going to be really good. The only question mark might be their setter, but heaven knows they'll have that position patched up. And then obviously they'll have Dane Del Rigo, which I think is pretty cool. I think Miles Crotty is a junior, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm not, I want to say he is, but the middle blocker position, look, I don't see any reason why Costa is going to be taking a step back, unless of course Mateo Furbringer pulls a Tread Rosenthal and he graduates early. But I highly doubt that to be true. So Miles Crotty is only a sophomore, so Costa is going to be happy with him coming back next year. So I think that's pretty awesome. Wyatt Davis, like I said, he's obviously a senior, so he'll be graduating. And yeah, let's just break down this whole Costa roster in terms of who's coming back and who's leaving. So I think Colby Graham is a senior. It's not my turn to watch who's who in terms of like their senior class, but all I could just say is that, like I said, Costa's roster is not as big as last year's. So Colby Graham's a senior. I don't know. I highly doubt he's going to be playing college ball. So looking at possible setters for next year, they've got Evan Torigny. They've got Evan Torigny. They've also got Dane Schaefer, who got to play a little bit. So he's only a freshman. I didn't know he was a freshman. Goodness. So yeah, they've got Dane Schaefer, he's also plays right side, so he's a oppo and setter, so that's pretty cool right there. Dane Del Rigo, like I said, he's only a junior. Casey Nietchow, he's a sophomore. He plays opposite. He's a possibility to play right side next year. Not that they need any more libero depth, but they've got Jack Tucker, who is only a junior, so that's pretty cool right there. Mateo Furbringer, like I said, he's only a junior. Darian Reneker, he's a junior middle blocker. He and Miles Crotty might be the middle blocker duo for next year. And they've got Evan Stoddard, who's also an opposite. So there you go. And then Julian Lee is also a junior outside hitter. So I think this Mira Costa team is going to be fine. I mean, they're obviously going to pick up their talent from the lower levels. So we shall see what happens for this team next year. But right now, they have a CIF state and potentially a national championship to win. But again, I'd be shocked if this team lost. So yeah, Mira Costa they're basically riding high. Maybe next week I'll look up when the last time Mira Costa took down Loyola 3 times in one season is, because that is no easy feat. Because Loyola is a darn good team, and there were a couple times, 2 out of those 3 times, Loyola could have beaten Mira Costa. The regular season meeting, Mira Costa wound up winning in 5, which I thought was pretty awesome. It was a reverse sweep, which is typical, which is kind of on par for Mira Costa. And the only thing that was surprising is that Mira Costa lost a 5-setter to Redondo Union, but it is what it is. It is what it is sometimes. Sometimes you just have your off nights. And by the way, the 2 sets that they lost to Loyola this past week, those were the only 2 sets they've lost in the postseason. I mean, they still got Northgate, but look, I'd be shocked if Northgate took a set off them. I mean, Northgate's 37-1, but they haven't really played too much in terms of their schedule. I mean, yeah, that's pretty cool. And Mira Costa is like 35-2, but you gotta look. But for me, they haven't really played the competition like Mira Costa has. I mean, I don't even think they've played one team I mean, it's tough for them because they're a Northern California team, but you can only play the teams that are on your schedule. So they actually lost to St. Francis of Mountain View. I said they lost to Bellarmine College Prep, but that's not true. So they lost to St. Francis. So that's my bad. And that was actually a tournament match. It was the best 2 out of 3 tournament match. So there you go. But yeah, Northgate, they haven't really played anyone within the top. I mean, national rank, they're number 2. So I guess that's what you get for climbing your way, for winning the Northern California section of the SoCal Regional Playoffs. But yeah, it's number 1 versus number 2. But honestly, Mira Costa is a distant number 1 in my honest opinion. I mean, the 3rd best team, surprisingly, is Columbus from Florida, which I think is pretty cool right there. So that's pretty solid. But yeah, I will die on the hill that Southern California does have some of the better volleyball talent in the nation. So I think that's pretty cool right there. So there you have it right there. That's pretty much that for the high school boys volleyball portion of the show. And my big question is, if Northgate does beat Mira Costa, and Mira Costa's 36-2, not 35-2, but if Northgate does beat Mira Costa, would they become national champions? I don't think they will. I mean, maybe, but I doubt it. First, they have to beat Mira Costa, and then we'll have the discussion. But that'll do it for this little bit of high school boys volleyball. I know it wasn't that much, but I was able to get my little notes down. Yeah, this is basically what I wrote down my notes in. Not really the best numbers, but you have to make do what it do. So that's because in terms of SoCal Regional, in terms of like the SoCal Regional playoffs, you don't get access to in terms of box score. So I'm always well cautioned to take down my own numbers just because why not? Anyway, So that'll do it for the high school boys volleyball portion of the show. But that wasn't the only volleyball that happened at Mira Costa High. So we'll take ourselves a quick commercial break. When we come back, we've got the U.S. Women's National Red-Blue scrimmage to recap. And then we've got a little AVP to discuss. And then maybe we'll talk a little VNL. So keep it locked here. You were listening to Set Point here on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
For the last 10 years, iSports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at iSports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iSportsRadio.com. At iSportsRadio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the iSports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop, including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at iSports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making iSports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hi, eSports Radio fans. This show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, Single A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
That's right, everybody. Definitely check out our website and definitely follow us on X as well as subscribe to us on YouTube. And once again, definitely check out our sponsor, Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. We appreciate them for being the official sponsors of iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. All right, so now let's talk the U.S. Red-Blue Women's National Team scrimmage that took place at Mira Costa High last Wednesday. So there was a lot of volleyball happening at Mira Costa. Mira Costa was the host team for, well, their boys volleyball team had home court advantage throughout the entire CIF SoCal regional playoffs. But on Wednesday, we actually got to see the U.S. Women's National Team scrimmage against one another. The red team took on the blue team, and they're kind of in the stages of the long list. So they'll eventually cut the list down to the correct amount. They'll obviously have alternatives, but there was quite a bit of players that were on this year's long list. I'll also just mention that some of these players were actually indoor NCAA women's volleyball players or former indoor women's NCAA women's volleyball players. So a few examples of current NCAA women's volleyball players were Charlie Furbringer, who got to play. She attended Mira Costa High, for those that don't know. Cami Minor. Cami Minor is a former player. My apologies. But Andy Jackson. You also had the likes of Bergen Riley, who's both of them are playing at Nebraska, preparing for their senior year. Who else? Olivia Babcock, Tori Stafford. Those two were they kind of had a little bit of a homecoming because they didn't really play their ball near the Manhattan Beach area. They were more in the Los Angeles area, but it was still kind of close there. I don't think Olivia Babcock played, but I know Tori Stafford played, and she was solid. So for the first set of the match, the red team actually jumped out to a pretty sizable lead. I think they led by as many as like 7 or 8 points, and then the blue team eventually turned it around and wound up winning the first set 25-20. By my numbers, I never got a final box score, and I doubt there would have been a final box score just because the numbers were unofficial. But unofficially, the blue team had 3 different players with 3 kills. Overall, they had 5 different players with 2 or more kills, which I thought was solid. And then the red team had Simone Lee leading the way unofficially with 4 kills. Then you got Logan Eggleston with 3 kills. Anna Stevenson. I almost said Anna Hall, but Anna Stevenson, she also had quite a bit of kills for her team as well. So there you go. Oh, I'm sorry, not there are actually 2 Annas. Anna Stevenson Hall, and then Anna Dodson. Dodson was on the red team, and then Anna Stevenson was on the blue team. In terms of the first set. The second set, the red team actually managed to make a nice little comeback late in the set. They're actually down 23-20, and then they rattled off the last 5 points to win the second set 25-23, which I thought was pretty darn cool if you ask me. Like I said, Micah Hancock actually got the call at setter. She actually had 3 kills that set by my numbers. You also had Tori Stafford with 3 kills in a solo block. Cara Bejima had 3 kills as well. So overall, I thought the red team, in my opinion, wowed me in that set. Now, the blue team had their chances. Kendall Kipp had 4 kills in that set. Then Claire Hoffman had 3 kills to go along with a solo block. And then there were 2 other players with 2 kills. I think it was Anna Stevenson Hall. And then I forget who 99 was. Oh, God. How am I blanking on who 99 was? It wasn't Babcock, that's for sure. But I digress. These numbers are unofficial anyway, so don't quote me on them. Don't quote me on it. And then the third set, the red team actually took that third set 25-19. They actually jumped out to got off to a hot start. And even though the blue team had 7 unofficial kills from Claire Hoffman, the red team basically had a nice little balanced attack. They had 3 different players with 3 or more kills. And then, like I said, Tori Stafford was doing her thing. I think Andy Jackson put down a few in the middle as well, which I thought was pretty cool. By the way, definitely do check out my interviews. They're on Facebook, and they're also on Instagram as well. So definitely do check out my interviews, just because it would definitely mean a lot. It would help boost the algorithm, help boost the numbers, and help me out. It would help your boy out. Help your boy Teran Rodriguez out. So there you go. So the red team took that set 25-19, but Claire Hoffman I thought was pretty impressive in that set. Like 7 kills, like she was just putting down every time she was set. It felt like she was putting it down until like the later stages of the set where the red team started to lock in. And then wait, yeah. And then the red team eventually took the 4th set 25-8. I put 25-8 in terms of the my numbers that I took down. So I took down numbers just because I could have asked for the numbers because I was sitting right near the USA Volleyball statisticians, but I wanted to take my own numbers down. But yeah, in set 4, the red team took that set 25-8. I was very surprised. It was very one-sided. Tori Stafford, by my numbers, she had 6 kills. And then Claire Hoffman also had 3 kills in that set, which I thought was pretty cool if you ask me. And also Stephanie Samity stepped up as well. So And then the fifth set came, and the blue team took it 15-5. They had 4 aces in that set, as Simone Lee was just serving up a storm. And I think Stephanie Samity was also serving really tough as well. They didn't need a whole lot of kills, as in terms of the fifth set, both teams had a combined 5 kills, which actually was surprisingly 75 or 25% of the points by both of these teams. So there you go. So overall, what did I think of the scrimmage? I thought it was very fun, and I just gotta say the future definitely looks bright when it comes to USA volleyball. Just because I definitely think they have some really good talent. They have some really good players, in my honest opinion. I think we just gotta keep an eye on them, and also I think the US has kind of got to update their roster, because they still have Annie Drews on the roster, but she's kind of she's on maternity leave, which is a bummer, but it is what it is. So as for the overall scrimmage, I thought it was a great scrimmage. I'm glad there was quite a bit of people there. The stands were packed. And honestly, I don't blame the fans for coming out. And there was actually quite a bit of Nebraska fans out there. So salute to the Nebraska fans that went out there. Whether they were from California, or whether they were from Nebraska, or whether they were from anywhere in the United States, I heard a lot of cheers for Lexi Rodriguez and Andy Jackson and Bergen Riley. So there you go. And then there was quite a bit of Stanford players. If you heard my interview or saw my interview with Kendall Kemp, I mentioned she got to play with the likes of Katie Baird, Morgan Hance, and Cami Miner. I left out one, and that was Alina Ogilvy, which is a big oof on my part. But when you're me and you have to remember 30 plus players that are on this roster, I'm going to be missing quite a few. So don't get mad with me if I miss one or two, but I digress. But there were some players that did not play in the scrimmage, like the primary U.S. national team members, like Sarah Franklin. She unfortunately did, like she who else? Jordan Poulter, obviously. The Skinner sisters, Avery and Maddie. Then you also had Dana Retke not playing. So there were some players that did not get to play. Molly McCage did play. I should make note of. But yeah, there were some players that did not play. Some of the players that did not play actually were just on the courtside seats, which I thought was pretty cool, if you ask me. I should also, but they weren't like hurt. They just flew in. From what Sarah Franklin told me, she said, and I quote, "We weren't ready yet because we just got in." So I'm gonna take the assumption and say that they flew in and they weren't ready to. They didn't practice, or they weren't ready. So there you go. So yeah, so that's pretty much that. So I just wanted to get that out there right now, there and then. I mean, it was like 30 players on the roster. There was quite a bit of players. There would have been like so much distribution in terms of like playing time and so on and so forth. So there you go. Taking a little bit of away from taking a break from the U.S. Red-Blue scrimmage. I actually do want to congratulate the U.S. women's sitting team for winning gold at the USA V Cup, which I thought was pretty awesome, if you ask me. They took down Canada, which were the number one and number 2 teams in the world, which I thought was pretty nice, if you ask me. So congratulations to them. They swept their way through the entire tournament except for the final. So last Friday, they took down Japan in straight sets. Saturday, they took down Canada, and then they took down Brazil in straight sets. And then Sunday was the championship, where they took down Canada in a 5-set barn burner. And man, that match was actually close, because the first set was 30-28. So the first set was a deuce. The second set was a deuce. The third set was decided by 3. The fourth set was pretty lopsided. Okay, maybe not pretty lopsided, but still kind of. It was decided by more than 3 points. And then the fifth set was a deuce, 16-14. So you had that right there, and that was pretty awesome. So congratulations to the U.S. women's sitting team for winning gold at the USAV Cup. So pretty awesome, if you ask me. Huh? Okay, but now jumping back to the U.S. women's national team in terms of the red-blue scrimmage. So there were 30 players named to the preliminary roster. So there was Micah Hancock, Jordan Poulter, Avery Skinner, Kendall Kipp, Morgan Hentz, Asia O'Neal, Lexi Rodriguez, Maddie Skinner, Simone Lee. I guess she got married, so she's now Simone Lee Wank. Sage Kahaina Torres, Jordan Thompson, Anna Stevenson Hall, Rachel Fairbanks, Dana Retke, Cami Minor, Elena Scott, Elena Ogilvie, Claire Hoffman, Sarah Franklin, Chiaka Agbagu, Cara Hollick, Anna, which Cara Hollick, that's actually Cara Bejima. So I'm gonna need to get used to not reading the maiden names of these players, but I digress. Anna Johnson, Manny Cubic Banks, Molly McCage, Logan Eggleston, Stephanie Samity, Olivia Babcock, Tori Stafford, Sammy Francis. Another player that also played in the another Stanford player or former Stanford player that played in the U.S. women's national team scrimmage. Katie Baird, Haley Washington, Lauren Briseño, Charlie Furbringer, Andy Jackson, Bergen Riley, and Kari Knotts. Kari Knotts. So, yeah. And as we all know, the head coach is none other than Eric Sullivan. So, yeah, between those players, I can't really give you a projection on who's going to be cut and who's going to be on the final team. Well, I shouldn't say who's going to be cut, but who's going to be on the reserves and who's going to be on the actual team. But I can't wait to see who's going to be on the final. Is going to be on the final roster. So I actually do want to take a look at the women's national team scrimmage in terms of the VNL. So. There's a media note that says, due to space limitations inside the... I guess I should make note that... first and foremost, before I look at the VNL, I actually do want to thank Kelly Rickey for approving me for a credential. Well, Kelly Rickey and Laura Fawcett. As we all know, last Tuesday, I was waiting on if my credential was approved. I had to reach out to Laura Fawcett, and then she responded to me really quickly right before I went live, and she said, yeah, you're approved. And it said, but I'm looking at this note. It says, due to space limitations inside the Miracosta gym, media credentials will be limited. Outlets interested in covering the event should fill out our media credential request form. No credentials will be approved on site. Well, it's a good thing I requested I put down a media credential request. So, but yeah, thank you to Kelly Rickey, Laura Fawcett, and the rest of USA Volleyball for having me. I enjoyed it. So there you go. Yes. Yeah. I just now looked at that link and I looked at the VNL. That ain't it. Anyway, I looked at the link right there. I looked at the link when it came to the VNL, and yeah, I'm really thankful to, when it comes to like covering events, I have to show attitude and gratitude. And no matter who you are, whether it's a school, whether it's a big time organization, the fact that you approved me for a credential, I really appreciate. And whether you accept my invitation to collaborate or not on Instagram, I still love you. But yeah, looking at the U.S. women's national team in week 1 of the VNL, they'll be playing in Quebec City, where they'll take on Ukraine, Canada, France, and Germany. That seems like an interesting first few matches. It all depends on who they're trotting out. If they're going to be trotting out the youngins, then they may have some growing pains. But if they trot out the more experienced roster, then they could easily go 4-0, but they could also go 0-4. Then week 2 is in the Philippines. By the way, that first week is on June 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 7th. Week 2 will be on June 16th, 18th, and then they've got 2 matches. So they'll be playing in the Philippines, which obviously is going to have a different time. So the June 16th matchup will be 9 p.m. So it looks like it's going to be Pacific time or Eastern time, but I digress. It's probably going to be Eastern time. It's going to be against Dominican Republic. And then June 18th, they'll play Czechia. June 20th, they'll play Italy. And then also June 20th, if you're in the United States, will be against Serbia. So Serbia is probably the one that kind of concerns me. Italy's the one that really concerns me. Italy is the golden standard of the VNL, let alone in terms of like FIVB. Like they're not just the best team in the world. They might be the best team in the universe, which isn't really saying much. But I just wanted to throw that out there. Italy is just on a tear when it comes to the whole VNL. And then week 3 will be in Osaka, Japan. The U.S. will take on Thailand, then Poland, then Turkey, then Brazil. So that's probably going to be their toughest week. That's going to be on July 7th, and then, July 7th, and then July 8th, depending on where you're at in terms of the world, and then July 9th, and then July 11th. So the July 7th matches are basically going to, I mean, if you're in the U.S., then you'll be seeing the U.S. on Volleyball TV or Volleyball World TV, and you'll be seeing them at 11:30 a.m. and then 9 p.m. So it all depends on where you are in terms of the world. But in terms of week 3, that week is going to be really tough. Thailand is a really good opponent. Poland is also a good opponent. I think Thailand's pretty good. Was it Thailand? I think Thailand might be the least threatening of the 3. But Poland's a good team. Turkey is a really good team. And then Brazil is obviously Brazil. Like, that's the last matchup, and that's going to be the toughest one. The good thing is that they don't have to face too many opponents in terms of, like, their own home soil. I think Canada might be the only tough one, but I digress. I'm just kidding. Canada not really going to be the tough one just because they can beat Canada. If they don't, then we have problems. But Volleyball TV is going to be the subscription, which I hate having to have a subscription for Volleyball TV because I don't really use it I don't really use the subscription for Volleyball TV. I'm sorry, but I don't. And it's tough for me because, your boy here is your boy isn't really made of money and whatnot. So, and also I'm not going to spend a pretty penny when it comes to flying out to these events because that's going to probably be a lot of money down flying over to different countries and so on and so forth. And now for the men's national team, their VNL roster actually just got recently announced, and if it can load, that would be awesome. So their roster consists of Matt Anderson, Mason Briggs, Jeff Gendrick, Kyle Ensing, Cooper Robinson, Jacob Pastor, TJ DeFalco, Gabby Garcia, Kyle D'Agostino, Micah Christensen, Michael Marshman, Taylor Averill, Micah Ma, Andrew Rowan, Cam Thorne, Jake Haynes, Cole Hartkey, Zach Rama, Ethan Champlin, Daniel Wetter, Eric Shoji, Nolan Flexen, Merrick McHenry, Troy Gooch, Matt Knigge, Parker Tompkinson, Teran Rodriguez, Jordan Ewart, Sean Kelly, and Wes Smith. So that is the long list. So that's the long list. So it's eventually going to get cut down to the final preliminary roster, and then they'll have the reserves. But a lot of current NCAA men's volleyball players on this roster, such as Wes Smith, Sean Kelly, Teran Rodriguez, Parker Tompkinson. That's pretty cool right there. Cole Hartkey. That's also pretty awesome if you ask me. Zach Rama and Andrew Rowan, as well as Cameron Thorne, they're now officially alums of UCLA. So we can't really call them current players. So there you go. But yeah, those players that I just mentioned, Wes Smith, Sean Kelly, Teran Rodriguez, Parker Tompkinson, and Cole Hartkey, those are all current players in NCAA men's volleyball. Those players are definitely going to be someone to keep an eye out for. I think Teran Rodriguez has a good shot of making the roster. And I'm surprised he's 6'9". I thought he was taller than 6'9", but I digress. But yeah, looking at the U.S. men's national team schedule, so they'll actually be playing in Ottawa, Canada. So June 10th, they'll be playing against Turkey. June 12th, they'll be playing against Germany. June 13th, they take on the host team, Canada, and then June 14th, they'll take on Italy. I see the first week they can actually go 3-1. I think 3-1 is a good start for them. Germany might be the little bit concerning one, but they could definitely handle Turkey, and they could also take down Canada, in my opinion. Then week 2, they travel to Orleans, France, to take them on. Cuba. They've got Cuba, Iran, Japan, and Serbia. Japan might be the tough one. Iran has improved. Serbia, I think that shouldn't be too tough. And then Cuba, they should be able to handle. So at worst, they can go 2-2, if not 1-3. But I think 2-2 is relatively possible. 3-1 is definitely not out of the question. I think Japan will be their toughest challenge. And then week 3, to all you people living in Illinois, you lucky dogs will get to see the U.S. men's national team for the final week of the men's VNL. So week 3 will consist of the U.S. playing China, Brazil, Bulgaria, and Poland. So Poland and Brazil will be the tough one. Bulgaria, it all depends. If they have certain players, I think Bulgaria could actually win that one. China I think they could handle China. So realistically, the U.S. could go 2-2, but they could also go 1-3, which means my final, my ceiling for them is probably 8-4, if not 7-5. My floor for them probably could be like 5-7. I think 5-7 is the U.S. men's national team floor, while their ceiling is 8-4. I definitely think this U.S. team has a lot of talent, and I think now that they've got one full year under Coach Karai, they now know what to expect going forward. So definitely keep an eye out for them. And the same can be said for the U.S. women's national team. Now that they've got a full year of Eric Sullivan, they now know what to expect. And Eric Sullivan, if you all saw my interview, I asked him, what can we expect from the U.S. women's national team this year? And he said, and I quote, "Everything we're going to do, we're playing for gold." You better, Eric Sullivan, I'm going to defend you for all that I can, because I think Eric Sullivan deserves some credit. I mean, the dude won the League One volleyball championship with Austin, but I'll defend him as long as I can defend him. Like I'll make sure that there won't be a whole lot of slander for Eric Sullivan, but that doesn't mean I can't make full on promises. Let's just keep it a buck right there. Just because I don't want to I don't want to agree with the crowd that's like negative toward Eric Sullivan. But if there is something that I definitely have to agree with the crowd, then I'll definitely agree with the crowd, but I won't put it in a evil backlandish state. But yeah, there's a lot of pressure when it comes to the U.S., but we'll see what happens when it comes to the women's national team and the men's national team. I think the women's national team is a little bit more under pressure just because they've won the VNL in years past, and they haven't won in like a hot minute, whereas Italy's kind of now the new golden standard. And whereas the men's side of things, Karch knows what to expect when it comes to the U.S. national team, because he coached the women for a long time. So there you go. All right, but that is that right there for the U.S. women's national teams. I went over their rosters, and then I went over their schedule. I guess I'll give my ceiling and floor for the women's national team next week. So there you go. But let's move on to the AVP. So let's close off the show with a little AVP action, and then I'll send you all on your way. So unfortunately, we didn't really have we did have an AVP tournament from this past week. We actually had oh shoot. I closed out the Okay. I brought it back, ladies and gentlemen. I brought it back. Okay, so we did have an AVP tournament, being the South Florida Open. It was a Heritage Contender event, but we never really got any details regarding it, and we didn't really get a chance to, see any of the action. come on, AVP, give us some sort of throw us some sort of bone. I did it again. I closed out one of the AVP tabs that I'm using, but I digress. But yeah, we didn't really get a chance to see anything of the South Florida Open. All I do know is that my boy Avery Drost, former guest of Set Point, he actually got a chance to partake in the South Florida thing, which I thought was pretty cool, if you ask me. But unfortunately, there was no promotion. But anyway, this week the AVP League starts this week, and they actually start in Belmar, New Jersey. So this weekend will be the AVP League, where basically you've got all your teams from last year taking on one another, which I think is pretty nice, if you ask me. So let's have a little bit more of a deeper dive when it comes to the Belmar week 1 of the AVP League. So here is the event details for week 1 of the AVP League. So event 1 of the 2026 AVP League kicks off in Belmar, New Jersey. So the matchup schedule is as followed. So the LA Launch takes on the New York Nitro. The San Diego Smash takes on the Brooklyn Blaze. The LA Launch takes on the San Diego Smash. And then the New York Nitro takes on the Brooklyn Blaze. So it's basically the New York teams, the LA team. So the teams, let's go over the teams. So starting with the LA Launch, you've got Maddie Anderson and Elena Chacon, Chacon. How could I say that? I know we're sisters. Maddie Anderson and Elena Chacon, they're on the LA Launch. They're the women's pair, while the men's pair is Hagen Smith and Logan Weber, which are a good dynamic duo for the AVP. By the way, Hagen Smith was named the 2025 AVP Best Server. Then for the New York Nitro, you've got Teran Rodriguez, the 2024 AVP League champion, back when she was with the San Diego Smash, as well as Molly Shaw. Then you also got Kame Shulk and James Shaw. Shulk was actually a 2026 Rio Olympian, so that's a little bit of a fun fact right there. And then for the San Diego Smash, it's pretty much their same roster, except Teran Rodriguez is on the New York Nitro. So their same roster is Miles Evans, Chase Budinger, and Gina Arango, who was actually the 2024 and 2025 AVP MVP, which I think is pretty cool. But San Diego actually has a new addition to the San Diego Smash. So in favor of Teran Rodriguez, they actually have Megan Rice, which I think is Megan J. Rice. The one from Redondo Union High and the one from Hermosa Beach. The one with the blonde hair, not the one from Florida. But I digress. Anyway, so then you've got the Brooklyn Blaze as the final team that's partaking this week. So the Brooklyn Blaze is actually the reigning league champion, but they actually have a new guy pair. So they have a new men's pair. They don't have Trevor Crabb and Phil. Oh, I'm sorry. No, the women's side. Okay, I'm sorry. The women's last year was totally different. So in terms of the women's pair, Lexi Denneberg and Julia Donlin were the women's AVP League champions, so they return. And then on their men's pair is now Derek Bradford and Evan Corey. So a little bit of different roster from the Brooklyn Blaze, but they still have last year's women's champions in Lexi Denneberg and Julia Donlin. But Bradford and Corey are both a good duo. I saw them in the Huntington Beach Open. They were solid. And I think they're definitely going to be a tough out for anybody in terms of the AVP League. So I think it's pretty cool if you ask me. And yeah, if you're planning on going, I guess I should make note of this. Small bags are allowed. All bags will be subjected to search. Beach chairs, umbrellas, and coolers are not permitted in ticketed areas. And then just know before you go. Unfortunately, I will not be there, as sadly your boy does not feel like flying out to Belmar, New Jersey, but I can guarantee you that I will be at the Long Beach. I will be there for the Long Beach week, where the AVP League comes to week 5 in the Long Beach area, which I think is pretty cool. So it's going to be at 700 East Shoreline Drive in Long Beach, California. Your boy is going to be there. Seeing as I didn't go to any NCAA men's volleyball, or not NCAA men's volleyball, NCAA beach volleyball events, I got to go to an AVP league event. And that week will be the LA Launch, Brooklyn Blaze, Miami Mayhem, and Dallas Dream. So cool beans. But that's not for a while. So there you go. But that's pretty much that for this week. So there you go. And then the AVP League is basically going to be. It still bugs me that the AVP decided to put Los Angeles instead of Long Beach. It's like, come on, get it right, people. Anyway, but it looks like the AVP League will be going for 4 weeks straight, from May being this week, and then they got next week, and then the following week, and then the following week in Las Vegas, Nevada. And then they'll take a nice little break from the AVP League until week 5 happens in Long Beach on July 11th and the 12th, which I think is going to be pretty cool if you ask me. And then they've got Central Park, and then East Hampton, and then Dallas, Texas, and then Chicago, Illinois is where the AVP League Championship is going to be held at. So I think it's pretty cool if you ask me. And I also like how the AVP League gets a month off because of the Manhattan Beach Open, just because that's the granddaddy of them all. And yeah, I admitted to somebody that I've never been to the Manhattan Beach Open, and that's the granddaddy of them all. So I got to go down there. Anyway, but that is that right there in terms of the AVP portion of the show. Yeah, that's pretty much AVP League in a nutshell. So the first year it was just the two men's and women's teams jointed with one another, and then the entire league wins the whole thing, or the entire team wins the whole thing. But but now that the AVP League was in its second year, they split the league down into 2 different leagues. They've got the men's side and then the women's side, which I think is pretty cool. I think that's actually better, but I can't necessarily. I think it's better just because if a team just has a dominant women's pair but a not so good men's pair, then it actually is better, and then vice versa as well. So there you have it. But yeah, I think the AVP League, I mean, obviously everyone has their gripes with the AVP in terms of like not growing and not like doing enough to like generate revenue and whatnot. But honestly, I think the AVP should still be fine. I mean, I know the AVP League is a little gimmicky, but in my opinion, I think we all just got to keep rolling with the punches. We all got to keep rolling with the punches and just keep supporting. Even though they don't want to like promote their AVP Heritage Contenders events, I still think that we should just keep an eye on it. And I'll definitely do my part to help grow the AVP and so on and so forth. So there you go. All right, but that will do it for the AVP portion of the show. Like I said, this week is the start of the AVP League, and I'll try to keep my eyes on it to the best of my ability, especially since there's not going to be a lot of volleyball the remainder of the way. Like this, we're now in the summer, which is basically just VNL season and then AVP season, and then looking forward to the NCAA women's volleyball season. But yeah, this week's AVP League will be on Saturday and Sunday. So there you go. All right, but that'll do it for the AVP League and the AVP portion of the show. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for this week's episode of Set Point. Not as long of a show as weeks past, but now we're kind of in the dog days of summer where it's just going to be AVP and then FIVB and then just the countdown until NCAA women's volleyball happens. And once we reach those preseason scrimmages before the regular season, that's when we could start restarting the cycle. But I digress. But that'll do it for this week's episode of Set Point. I will see you all tomorrow at Newport Harbor High for the Orange County Boys and Girls Volleyball All-Star matches, where I will be a judge on who will be getting MVP. I think Rob Aspero will also be there. Well, I mean, obviously Rob Aspero is going to be there. He's PA announcing the darn event. But yeah, he'll be there, and I think he and I will be judging on who will be MVP or not. But I digress. Until then, have yourself a great rest of the week. Enjoy all the volleyball action, and I will see you next week. Take care, everybody.